I still can't believe how many freaking books that I read this month. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to be doing my final wrap up for April. I'm filming this on the 29th, so I technically have like a day and a half left, but we're gonna call it here for now because April was readathon month, and especially for Battle of the Bands, which I am team lead for, Team ACDC. The best team, which last I checked, we were in the lead. So there's still a very small amount of time, but hopefully we'll still be there in the lead. I have to make sure. But I have finished all 20 prompts, and that's more than I normally read. And not only did I finish all 20, I actually also had some extra time here, so I've started some other stuff, and that surprised me because I wasn't expecting it. So I didn't do a weekly wrap up last week because it was mostly just two books that I was working on, and really mostly one. But Beyond Redemption, which I was still in the middle of, did a mix of physical and audio for this one, and I have a review that will be out later this week for this, and this was just such a wild time. This was just like the definition of just absolute chaos. I felt like we were just dipping into the most disturbed parts of Michael R. Fletcher's mind, and I really enjoyed the ride. This was such a different book. I'm really curious to see what the others are going to be like, but I'll talk more about that one for sure. But the one that was taking most of my time, and I spent most of a week on, was Fugitive Prince by Janny Wirtz, because I needed to make sure I had this read before the live show that I did on this with Angie the Bookaholic and P.L. Stewart and Janny Wirtz on it. And I have to say, I have just absolutely been in love with these books. This is from the Wars of Light and Shadow, and this is either book 3 or 4, depending on the format, because I have the hardcover I have for Ships of Merrier is books 2 and 3. It's split and everything else. This is the start of a new arc, and it does so much here with building upon everything that's been set up in the book so far, but also shifting gears and acting as kind of a transition book because it's starting the next arc, which is called the Alliance of Light arc, and at the same time just doing so much to recontextualize, add more stuff. There's so many little subtle bits of world building and foreshadowing and things being shown here, and I absolutely just cannot wait to continue this series. I'm just absolutely loving it, and this definitely has the potential to be the new favorite of all time. I cannot say enough about how much I love these books. So once I finished that. And so it was really those two were for the third week of April, and in the fourth week, I went in to make sure that I was finishing up all of my prompts. And so the next one I did was Masquerade by Terry Pratchett, and this is a 18 in Discworld, I think, because I'm doing a publication order and a witches book, and it's kind of a parody on the Phantom of the Opera, but there's a lot of just jokes about opera and music and that kind of thing as well. Of course, we have the witches, Granny Weatherwax and Nanny Ogg, and a return of Perdita or Agnes here. And this was just a delight. I tend to really like the witches books, and this one, like I said, had some other bits and pieces, things in there as well. Had some cracks at like a publisher, like publishers actually paying authors. When would they ever do that? That's crazy. Some things like that. But this was a heck of a lot of fun. I don't think like you have to be super familiar with Phantom of the Opera for this one. I've seen the opera musical, whatever. I haven't actually read that book yet, although I mean to. But it was a lot of fun. The witches doing what the witches do, and continue to enjoy. This is definitely my favorite witches book since Weird Sisters. I don't know if it edges out Weird Sisters because I just love Weird Sisters so much, but this was a delight. Really, really great, and it has me once again just raring to continue. I know I have a couple of City Watch books coming up for the next publication order, so I will be excited to continue with that. Then after that, I at long last got to Wistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrne. I will also be doing a review for this one sometime here soon, in the next week or two, depending on scheduling for videos. But this was a really good time. This is the first book in the Hybrid Helix, and this is our book where the main character is like a retired superhero / weapon of mass destruction who's just trying to live a quieter life, but things are starting to catch back up with him. And I'll definitely be talking more, but very space opera and kind of the feels kind of like it's designed to almost be like a comic book in the kind of pacing, which I'll talk more about. But really enjoyable here. I had a fun time with this one. Really easy to get through. I did some audio with this as well, which was good. And I'll definitely be continuing the series, but I'll talk more about that in the review. And then continuing, I realized how many of like the books that were on my list to read for Grimdark that I've actually gotten to during this readathon. So there's been several, and I've been enjoying them. And this was, I started Priest of Bones by Peter McLean, and this is described as being kind of like a grimdark fantasy, meets The Godfather. And weirdly enough, what it almost reminded me of is if the Black Company, like the members of the Black Company, were gangsters. This is kind of where I got here. But this has veterans who were conscripted returning from war, going back to their city and trying to like take back over all of their territory and everything like that. Very dark, a lot of stuff in here, and one that I enjoyed. For the most part here, there were a couple things I wasn't a huge fan of, but I had a really good time with this. This is another one I'll definitely be continuing this series. I do have the second book as well, and I'll be doing a review for this as well, which should come out also within the next couple of weeks. With all of the books that I've read for the first time in a long time, I actually am like, I have reviews I have to actually push out instead of just having them ready for the very next week because I've read so many books. So this one also definitely will be an review, and I'll be talking more about as well. And then my very last prompt, originally I was going to read a different book that I had that was a review copy, but it was really, really long. And I realized there were a lot more books that fit the prompt of having a male character's name in the book or series. And so I ended up instead doing Fred, The Utterly Uninteresting Tales of Fred the Vampire Accountant. I was trying to remember the full name. Which is kind of shorter. This is the first one here. And this is like a collection of, short story kind of tales or like episodes sort of Fred. And while I didn't find it utterly uninteresting, I was not a huge fan of this one. And so it was pretty quick to get through, and the audio performance was really good because I did this one just straight audio on script. And so I might, when I'm looking for something light, I might continue this one, but I was not really feeling it. I kind of landed on about like a 3, where it wasn't bad, and I wasn't actively disliking it. I just wasn't super invested either. And the direction it went was, I think, different than what I was expecting. A lot more adventures, a lot less accounting. And I kind of thought like having the like actually just being a day-to-day accountant thing, I thought that sounded funnier, even though maybe not. I sometimes have a dry sense of humor. So it was pretty good. I'll see. I'm not entirely sure though if it's going to be something that I continue or not. I will have to find out. But since I then finished all of my prompts and had some extra time, I started a little early, which is almost still technically late because I needed to get to it really soon. The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence, which I have an e-arc for. This is one where I had gotten approved for it kind of late, and so I had not slotted it into anywhere in April to figure out when I was going to do it. So I was trying to figure out, because it comes out in early May, and so I needed to get to it very quickly. So having a few extra days to get started on it, I figured would be good. And I have not gotten super far in. Despite that, I'm only maybe like 10% into that right now. So don't have any strong thoughts at this point, but interesting concept here. Somebody coming from like, out in the, reaches of desert, and somebody who's lived their entire life inside of a library are two main characters, and I imagine it's going to intersect at some point, but like I said, it's still pretty early. But I was curious for this one. I'm still behind on like his whole body of work, so I only read Red Sister. I need to finish that series, Book of the Ancestor, but I figured I'd give this one a shot, so I've been working on that a little bit. And then I started, the funny thing is I was listening to on Scribd audio, and then I realized I actually do have a physical copy of the book too. But The View from the Cheap Seats by Neil Gaiman, he narrates the audiobook, and at least the first half of this is mostly like speeches he gave. It's like speeches he gave, or articles he wrote, or introductions he wrote for other authors and people. And so interesting, and so having him, read it, when, especially for the speeches, that was kind of the point, I figured made a lot of sense. This is surprisingly long, but I've actually really, really enjoyed this so far. I'm in the back half now, where it's more so like him talking about like authors or artists or different people, which has been interesting. Definitely some people I'm planning to check out. But the first half is a lot of speeches about reading, about writing, about life, and just especially the first half of this, I feel like pretty much anybody who's a big reader or an author would get quite a lot out of it. So even just from that, I recommend. But I have a bit to go because I ended up pausing this because my library loan finally came through for audio of Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. And I do have physical of this too. I have not actually, I've just been listening to audio at this point. I'll probably end up hybrid reading, but I was trying to get extra reading time in for the book that wouldn't burn. But I figured I would give this a try because I started a little bit of this. I read like part of the first chapter a while back, and it seemed like it would work really well in audio, and so that's where I was giving it a shot. I am like maybe 30% into this, or I think a little less than that actually, probably closer to 20%. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. It's kind of weird and a different style than what I'm used to. Obviously, this is more like contemporary, and so it's not really what I normally read. But I'd heard a lot of people really love this author and this book, so I figured I would give it a shot. And so I'll have to update on it. But yeah, I don't know. I think it just might not be my style. So far, it hasn't really meshed super well with me. But we'll see how it goes. So those are the other things that I have been working on here so far in my little bit of extra time and gearing up. And then I definitely won't do 20 books in May, but I have a lot on the agenda for May, so we'll see what all I get through for that month. That is it, though, for April here. Like I said, I'll continue on the things that I mentioned that I'm reading right now for today and tomorrow, but this is all. I'm not going to actually finish anything in that time, so I figured it still works to get this all done. So let me know what you read in April, and for the readathons, if you got through all your prompts. Also doing the TBR Blitz and Key Mark as well, which that one was only 5 prompts, which I think I still need to submit my last one before the deadline, so that's a good reminder too. But yeah, so let me know if you did those, if you got a lot of reading in, or if you did Battle of the Bands, if you actually made the 20 or are going to make the 20. I'm still kind of surprised that I did, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed getting through so many things, and there were a lot of books that I wanted to read for a long time that I finally got to, so it worked out really, really well for me with that. But yeah, let me know how your April went. Otherwise, make sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description, as always, for the Wizardly Duo Discord if you want to chat books, whether these books, other books, any books, really anything at all. It is a lot of fun, and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.